As the Torchwood Big Finish range starts to wind down, it's only fitting that we get to have one last look at the constant tragedy that is the life of Susie Costello. The Susie Costello Torchwood stories, starring Indira Varma, who has been returning to the range quite regularly for the past few years and always bringing us some terrific work. These are a frequent highlight of the range. Bad Connection last year was absolutely terrific. The Last Love Song of Susie Costello the year before. Really terrific stuff. These are some really good stories that really do flesh out the character that we didn't see too much of in the TV series, but just constantly hit you with the irony that no matter how much happiness she can find or despair that she will find in these stories, her fate is essentially fixed to what happens in that first season of Torchwood from 2006. You've got a lot of material to play with in stories like Child Free. So the story of Child Free, written by Holly Robinson and George Fletcher, is that on a night out, you've got Howell, who is played by Arthur Hughes, and he is on a stag do, and he bumps into Susie Costello in a club. He's carrying a bunch of sambucas, and Susie is carrying a gizmo that would detect alien signals and stuff. They bump into each other, spill the sambuca everywhere, they hit it off, and then they wake up in bed together the next morning. However, it turns out that Howell was not just at any stag do, he was at his stag do. And also, on the way back from the nightclub the night before, they found an abandoned child. They returned it, whatever, it's not our problem. But then they wake up the next morning, haven't slept with each other. They wake up and the baby, the child, is in Susie's apartment. And they're wondering how on earth to get rid of this baby and what on earth to do with it. And it is also being pursued by a bunch of blobs. Some weird extra dimensional creatures that are wanting the child, but it's up to Susie and Howell to try and rescue the baby and make sure that these blob creatures do not get their hands on it, while they try and battle through their own interpersonal demons along the way. And they try and drop off the baby at a police station, and Susie Costello is testing a theory. Let's play a clip from Child Free.
So you said you'd stop off at my flat. It's on the way.
Well, I don't want you to be late.
Oh, I see. Now you got rid of the baby. You want shot of me and all.
No!
Why'd you offer me a lift, anyway?
Like I said, I'm nice.
Nice. No, you're not.
Okay, then I wanted to keep you about so I could test a theory.
What theory? Oh my god! Oh my god, the baby's back! Susie, stop the car!
Well, that's that theory tested. Pity.
The baby?
Teleported right back into your arms. I think it likes you.
It what?
Teleported. I said earlier.
Yeah, I thought you were joking.
Why would I joke about a teleporting baby?
I don't know.
It's not even funny.
But when you said it was maybe an alien, were you being serious?
Yeah, totally.
Oh my god.
I thought we might have shaken it off, but no, must be properly latched on. I think wherever we leave it, it will teleport back to us. Very clingy. Now it's crying again!
Goodbye, baby, on the treetop. When the wind blows, the cradle will... So there are aliens. When the bough breaks, the cradle will... In Cardiff. Down will come, baby.
Oh, amazing! Yes, there are aliens everywhere, but mostly in Cardiff.
So, Torchwood Child Free, it's an interesting premise, and I also think Indira Varma and Arthur Hughes have really great interplay with each other. I think in terms of performances, they work really well together. The contrast between the characters as well is really effective. You've got Susie Costello as effectively this lone wolf type of character who is very detached. She doesn't really do paternity very well. She doesn't do affection very well. But then you've also got Howell, who's, like I said, it's the night before his wedding, and then he gets swept up in this misadventure with Susie Costello. And he's also going through his own conflict. He's trying to think about whether or not he actually wants to marry his fiancée, Naomi, if they're actually going to be together for the right reasons, and how thrusting a child in this situation just makes things sort of more complicated, but it sort of forces you to buckle down and try and make it work. And that's the sort of subtext working underneath the text of Child Free. Holly Robinson and George Fletcher, I believe this is their first Torchwood Big Finish script, and I think it's an effective one in terms of the actual dialogue and the premise of it. My main drawback, though, for Child Free is that I think it plays it relatively safe. I think that there's so much material on the table for a premise like this. I think there's so much that you could explore with the characters, and I think it kind of throws an awful lot of the subject matter at you without really sort of reckoning and dealing with it. The whole story, the concluding minutes, ties up the story arc of Howl in a pretty neat bow, all things considered, which doesn't feel very true or authentic to the story that it's trying to tell. And also, I think Susie's journey over the course of the story, where she's not being particularly paternal, but she sort of like learns to buckle up and deal with it with this baby. It's an interesting one, but I'm trying to figure out how it sort of relates to her journey and her story in the first season of Torchwood. It doesn't necessarily have to, but I kind of feel like there's a lot on the table that's not really making it to the surface here. It's an interesting story. I think it's a really effective premise. It's just if it just felt like it was kind of playing it really safe. I was kind of waiting for a big like crescendo of emotions. I was sort of like waiting for a big like dramatic reveal or something with these characters, but it never really came in the end. And I also think that the story is a bit afraid of having those quiet moments, that quiet time, because you have these action-packed set pieces with these interdimensional blob-like creatures who are trying to pursue the baby. Susie's got this theory that the baby is just a form of energy from another dimension that's recharging before it can hop somewhere else. It's a creature that spends its life perpetually on the run, and it's taken the form of a baby on Earth because it wants the people around it to protect it. And I think that's a really good idea, but it doesn't really explore that much further than here's what this creature is, or at least this is what Susie thinks the creature is. It doesn't really have a lot more to offer in regards to a point of utility for the plot. It's fine. Child Free is fine. I just think that with this premise, with the character of Susie Costello, this could have gone significantly further. I just think it was more interested in being maybe like almost like a buddy road trip story where Susie and Howl spend a lot of the time in the car driving from place to place trying to make it work. One funny detail is that they do name the baby Sambuca after their initial meeting in the nightclub, like abbreviated to Sammy. But like, who's the baby? It's Sambuca. And I thought that was a really funny detail. But apart from that, it's fine, it's entertaining. I just kind of wish that there was a bit more to it. I don't have too much more to say. This is probably going to be one of the shorter reviews that I do on this channel, but yeah, Torchwood Child Free. I enjoyed it. It's a decent road trip story, but I wish it was more than that. I wish it hadn't played it so safe.